In this module, I will describe and discuss the managerial and organizational competencies and strategies that are required for successful reinvention and synchronization. The following is a synthesis of my own research and experience, combined with the recent research of consultants and the reported experiences of executives. Victoria Swisher, Senior Director of Intellectual Property Development at Los Angeles-based Korn Ferry International, says the nature of the world we live in is aptly summarized by the acronym VUCA, that's V-U-C-A, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's an unsettled, changing world, one in which adaptability and flexibility are more important than ever. As Diana O'Brien, the Cincinnati-based managing partner for talent development at Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu's Corporate University, which serves the New York-based professional services firm's 50,000 U.S. employees, affirms, quote, "The global landscape is so complex and the regulatory climate changing so rapidly that the intensity of these global changes has increased the need for people who can respond quickly and operate effectively in an environment that is ambiguous," unquote. So let me describe some of these increasingly important competencies that today's chaotic world is making necessary for today's executives. The first of these that I want to discuss is the need for flexibility. So flexibility. There are two types of flexibility which are becoming ever more important. One has to do with the ability and willingness to shift when necessary from one management style, organizational culture, work process, product and technology, or attitude to another, maybe radically different from what you are used to. The second form of flexibility, often referred to today, has to do with providing flexibility in your workforce by supporting things like work-life balance, allowing employees to work on flexible work schedules and or working from home, usually referred to as telecommuting because it is made possible with the extensive use of electronic communications. A new wrinkle on this theme is the new development of centralized locales with workstations owned by third parties that provide workspace and technology that is shared by top talent and entrepreneurs from multiple firms, and that allows the mixing and networking of people with other talented people, largely from other companies, but from whom your talented employees can draw motivation to develop new ideas. So let's first look at the first of these approaches to flexibility. Traditionally, that is in the last 20 years or so, organizations have followed these approaches to reinvention through facilitation of various forms of flexibility. Downsizing, eliminating middle management in order to push decision-making closer to the action, closer to the people who interact with the customer, and thus hopefully making decisions more quickly, more flexibly, and responsive. Providing the technology and content for training and courses that are available just in time, such as being available online as needed, to help employees deal with constantly changing customer demands and innovative new processes and products and services. And the providing of archives of organizational knowledge and past learnings and yellow pages of skills and achievements of employees that can be useful in the development of solutions to new requirements or inquiries of customers. In the second of these approaches to flexibility, let's look at the lessons learned by Ernst & Young in their adoption of flexible work schedules for their employees. First, Ernst & Young has found that this type of flexibility is a two-way street. Both sides have an obligation to do it right, with transparency and responsibility. It requires the support of management because it is up to management to work with employees and their teams to decide what is expected from allowing flexibility. And it is up to employees to follow the expectations that are established about work performance from home. Calendars need to be set for establishing deadlines and establishing behavior expected of team members. Management needs to follow the rules as well in order to reinforce support for the use of such flexibility. At Ernst & Young, flexibility has become a way of life. It doesn't mean working less, but it does mean working differently. Workers usually like the freedom from this flexibility. But it needs to be mentioned in contrast that Yahoo recently ended much of its use of workforce flexibility because they found that the kind of innovation and creativity that they need to thrive in their telecom world requires employees to interact with each other in order to be creative and to develop the stream of innovations they need to be competitive. And working from home became seen as limiting that source of face-to-face interaction. Adaptability. Successful firms and executives are seen to exhibit adaptability. That is, they exhibit the ability to adapt what other firms do to their own situations. This requires looking at best practices and being curious about what top firms are doing, whether or not they are in your industry. And it requires a willingness to experiment and try new practices, products, technologies, and processes. A world in chaos requires nothing less for achieving continual success. Agility. Victoria Swisher from Korn Ferry says it all seems to boil down to one word or competency: agility. Specifically, Swisher is referring to learning agility. That is, the ability and willingness to learn from all experience, your own and that of others. I would suggest the competency needed is agility in all settings and situations, but it certainly also requires constant attention to learning. Doing new things requires learning. All of the characteristics that I have been describing that are attributes of the business world today create the needs for people with this learning agility. People with learning agility learn lessons from their diverse experiences and are able to distill those lessons down to new rules of thumb so that when they find themselves in unfamiliar situations, they aren't stumped by them. This agility ability has almost become the price of entry for success now for individuals and organizations, particularly for managers and executives. Studies around the world are showing that the ability to learn from experience is what differentiates successful executives and managers from unsuccessful ones. The ability to know what to do when you don't know what to do is becoming a major differentiator in staffing for key positions of leadership and team membership. Resilience. As I have mentioned a number of times, sooner or later your company will need to transform itself in response to market shifts, to groundbreaking technologies, or disruptive new businesses. This isn't easy to do. As Gilbert, Eyring, and Foster describe in a recent article in Harvard Business Review, such transformation as required to create this resilience requires two things: rebuilding the organization's core, while at the same time reinventing the organization's business model. Both of these efforts may lead to resistance from entrenched, successful managers and employees. But isolating those who are remaking the organization until they have the time to show success can be the key to reinventing the organization. Dividing the effort in two can allow leaders to develop a new strategy for the core that doesn't need to make up for all the business loss to the original disruption. And done a number of times, can build strengths into the organization for the resilience needed to survive in today's chaos. Recoverability. When things go wrong or catch you by surprise and just require rapid change, you and your organization must recover quickly from the negative consequences so that you can focus on adapting to the new environment and moving forward. And last, optimism. The last competency I want to describe is optimism, or the belief in an eventual good outcome of whatever response you or your organization have implemented in response to chaotic change. My mentor often used the term optipest. He said we all need to be optipests. That is, we need to exhibit a combination of optimism with pessimism. We need to be aware that we or our organization are in deep trouble, such that we will work incredibly hard to make sure everything works out okay. Without such pessimism, we aren't likely to be willing enough to put in the time and effort to ensure success. Coupled with faith, that is optimism, that such effort will eventually make everything work out successfully. It means constantly looking for potential crises and the need for change while doing everything possible to prepare yourself, your team, and your organization for the reinvention and new synchronization you know is coming and will be necessary. For many successful managers, they still confront barriers and obstacles to continuing fast growth. For example, and particularly true for small to medium-sized businesses and for entrepreneurs, the business can outgrow its staff. The existing staff was hired for a different time and a different organization. Now times have changed and the organization needs to reconsider its staffing. Too often, the organization waits too long to hire. Entrepreneurs and successful managers often need to hire before they know when the new person will be needed and before they know for sure what the new person will need to do. This can create a significant barrier to scaling up for new challenges. And right along with ensuring the right staff are problems with maintaining the right systems and procedures. It is hard to keep up with the necessary new processes and technologies. Eventually, just relying on your intuition or gut instincts won't cut it. And you need to identify software and systems that will enable you to function with new effectiveness. When people want what you're selling, you'd better be able to provide it. And as your business grows, you need to grow with it. Too often, the problem is the boss, him or herself. Jim Collins, seen today as one of the top thinkers and researchers about corporate and executive success and failure, says that there are some recognizable obstacles to long-term success that he observes all too frequently. Collins talks about these in terms of stages of corporate decline. The first stage occurs when success leads to arrogance or hubris. It is the attitude that says, since we are so successful, we obviously don't need to keep innovating and trying so hard. We obviously already know what we need to know. The second stage occurs when this hubris leads to unsustainable and unquestioned actions. Pushing hard for continual big growth. Taking major risks without questioning their viability. And the undisciplined pursuit of more of everything. The third stage of corporate decline occurs when the firm and its executives deny that there is risk and peril in their strategies. They deny the warning signs that trouble is on the horizon. Rather than getting back to their original keys to success and fundamentals, the executive team faults everything outside their own influence or responsibility. And the fourth stage occurs when the firm finds that it must capitulate. It runs out of resources, both financial and human. As Collins has found, most organizations do indeed fail, but a few recover by going back to what worked well in the beginning. And just as with the advice on building resilience presented earlier, this is hard to do. So what have I been saying? I've been suggesting what today's successful executives and consultants are saying about how to react to the uncertainty exhibited by today's work environment and the anxiety it produces. Be agile, be flexible, do more with less, and yet still get it all done. So what are you to do to absorb uncertainty while maintaining high performance? It is imperative that you act with purpose, adjust the way you personally react to change, unanticipated uncertainty, and reframe change for your team, establishing the need for it in terms of reinvention and synchronization. I can assure you that if you follow these strategies, the world won't seem so uncertain and so chaotic, and opportunities for new levels of achievement and success will be there for you and your organizations. Thank you.